It's nice to have you here this afternoon in the Murphy Smith Bungalow, the Laguna Beach Historical Society main headquarters. And it is November 9th, 2022. I'm sitting with Ken Frank in the living room here. And my name is Karen Lagrew, and I serve as the current president of the Laguna Beach Historical Society. And we're working today with Jane Petty Jantz, who is our program coordinator. This is the first of a series of interviews by video. We do have oral histories recorded online, but we're fortunate to have Richard Kelly, the videographer, who has generally donated his time and skills, and we'll be recording this short interview today, as well as our programs at the Susie Q Community Center, which run about 3 or 4 times a year. You can find this video and subscribe on our YouTube channel or a link on our website. So before we start, I'd like to ask you, Ken, do we have permission to record this interview with you?
Certainly.
Okay. Would you like to give some background on the goats and the fire abatement program in Laguna Beach, which is so popular with our residents and even out-of-towners?
Yes, I'd be happy to. For years, the city had an abatement program which consisted of a little bit of clearing of weeds by the roads and a little bit of disking using a tractor to overturn the soil. And they did that for about $10,000 a year for many years. But clearly things were getting changed, and there were big fires around California. There was a big one in Oakland and Berkeley when I worked up there. It lost a lot of houses, a lot of people hurt. And so cities across the state began to look at different ways of reducing the fire hazard. And I worked in Berkeley, the city of Berkeley, and there's an organization called the East Bay Regional Parks District, which managed the open space up in the Berkeley and Oakland Hills. They started off with the goats in about the mid-70s and had very good success getting all the underbrush cleared off, and that was a very positive program. I came here in about 1980, and we had this $10,000 a year, almost negligent field modification program. And we were able to take some information to the council and get them to approve a little bit larger program, which included, for the first time, the use of goats. And that was in 1983, early in 83. Because later in 83, we had a huge fire. And I'll get to that at the end of the presentation, but and the effect of the fire and the fuel break that we had. Once the fire hit, we got cleaned up, the council set forth a policy to have a circular ring around Laguna Beach that was about 100 to 200 feet wide. And they allocated $500,000 to do that. And it got done, and it's very helpful in certain areas, but it kind of didn't get the attention for a while. It didn't get abated as much as it should. So then we come to where we are today, which is the city paying about $500,000 a year.
Big difference.
Sometimes less, depending upon the rainfall we have and the growth. And they are doing the entire perimeter of the city. And they're doing many of the interior canyons, like Bluebird Canyon, Oro Canyon. And it's really a program that was welcomed by everybody. They use goats, but they also use hand crews to protect native vegetation in certain areas. And that's when the Coastal Commission's approved it, and everybody seems to like that program. And you will see the results of that over the next 6 to 12 months probably. They've started, but they've got a long way to go. And that'll be, it should be done in a year. So basically, the cities come from a place where they did virtually nothing on $10,000 a year. With the impetus of the fire that forced them to expand the program, and with the fires occurring now all over Northern California and Southern California, they have a pretty aggressive program right now, which incorporates the goats with everybody else. So I think there are a couple of caveats. number one, you have to be prepared to do the maintenance ongoing. The goats can eat down to the roots, but there's going to be vegetation there come the rain, if there is rain. Secondly, you need to have firefighters. Having the goats or having a field modification program does not obviate the need for personnel in the field. And finally, does it work? The answer, I think, is clearly a yes. And you could see that 2 times. One is in October of 1993, where we had the firestorm. And if you recall, it was in North Laguna, coming from the toll road out to the coast. And it hit 2 things happened at once. It hit the fuel brake and the wind direction changed. That's not good for people who live in Mystic Hills or where I live, but it stopped it completely. Now, the only place it hit houses in North Laguna is Emerald Bay, behind Emerald Bay. And where was the only place there was not a fuel break? Behind Emerald Bay. So it's very clear the fuel break is really important. When we had the fire earlier this year, I believe, in Aliso Canyon, the first of the 2 fires, the first one was by this school, the university.
Top of the road by Soka University.
Soka University.
I remember that. People were evacuating, yeah.
There's no question that the fuel break was very effective in that fire, preventing it from coming up to top of the world and old top of the world. So it does work. You've got to maintain it, and you do have to be prepared to realize it's not going to look as good as it did when it was green in the spring.
So when we sit here with you, and you were 31 years as our city manager, and you did many projects, this one of them, this was something you had seen in Northern California, but wasn't really something Laguna Beach was familiar with, so you really brought the idea from there to here?
Yes, it was only a year or 2 that was in effect up in the Park District. And I felt that if the park people could support it and realize the importance, then we could get the everyday person to get behind it and support it.
And you mentioned the budget or the cost of the program increasing, and because it's successful, have the goats then increased from 10 to 400? Or
Yes.
I don't know how many goats there are exactly.
The number of goats depends in part on the available food for them. And when we've had droughts the last couple of years and there's been very little regrowth, then we have less goats. And the contract provides a basic number of goats, which I think is 300. And then it has supplements. The city can ask for an increment of another 100 goats and then another 100 goats. And they could pay, a rate is already set for that. So the goats right now, we're in November. The goats were just sent home a few days ago. So they've done their work this year and they're out in Chino someplace during the winter time. But they finished, started in after the rainy season, such as it is, in April, and they got done end of October. Really.
Okay, I was going to ask that if they stay here 365 days or not, but they went home for part of the year.
Well, now they are, because we've got most of the field break done a couple of years ago. So now they're regrazing areas that have grazed in the past, just recently, so there's less there.
When the goats go home, is it Agatilia? The goat herder is from Chile?
He's
or
one of the
Peru?
people, yes.
Okay. Does he, so there's more than one goat herder also?
Yes. And that was a problem this year. We had one goat herder who was in the United States and was doing the work, and we needed the second one to put a second herd in, and he couldn't get out of his native country to come here. But he did. It just took a while for him to get his clearances and get back to here. So there were 2 crews until just recently.
And they are experts because in the country they come from, they were born and raised sort of to do this kind of work, where we don't have an expert like that here.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and I know I have been up Bluebird Canyon where we live, and I've seen the goats and love seeing them on a walk and seeing how they clear the brush very well, and I like the dogs too. So the dogs do a lot of work. And how many dogs are there? Or have you gotten to know the dogs?
It varies, and I've got a picture of the dogs doing their duty. I don't know if you can see it, how well you can see it, but this dog basically takes care of the goats, makes sure that there's no predators coming in the fence, and making sure they get back to their huddle at night where they're fenced in and kept during the night. So that's one dog. I think they have 2 dogs.
Okay.
But I think they split them 1-on-1. I'm not positive.
And they sort of do the whistle to the dog they know the commands for the dog
Yes.
also, like a herder would?
Yes.
What about, talking about threats, do coyotes or are there challenges to the goats?
They occasionally
herder?
lose a goat to a predator, yes.
Mhm.
But it's infrequent because they huddle them together, they put them behind an electrical fence, and then they have the dogs.
Well, I know this is a popular program and people always, post where are the goats and children love them. And I have a grandson who we love to show the goats to. And you had a funny name for this program, or a cute name about Laguna's petting. What was that?
I don't even remember now.
Laguna's petting zoo or something? Or,
No.
Yeah, no.
But I have to say that it's not 100% satisfaction. There are people who do not want the native vegetation touched. I don't think that's practical anymore, if it ever was.
Interesting.
And you don't really hear much from them now. And they are mostly satisfied with the program which combines the goats with hand crews, which we're doing now.
Mhm.
It's a lot more expensive, but you're not putting, you're not putting anybody's backyard or planters in jeopardy. It's just the native vegetation. But some people want to save that. The preference from the council has been, we want to save the houses and the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And that being said, I think it was sort of near and dear to your heart because I had read that you lost a house in a fire too, was that, or no?
I did, no, I lost my house
during the
fire,
big fire,
yes.
yeah. And so that you had firsthand experience about how this could
Very
could help.
firsthand, yes. Yes.
Yeah. And what is the lifestyle of the goat herder? I've seen the camper they have, and they have water, electricity, or and how do they work with the city?
They have water and electricity, and a number of the people along the route will help them by tie up to their hose bib. And I'm not sure if they have electricity or they have a generator. I don't know that.
And I know when I was walking back up Bluebird Park, they escaped and they were coming down the hill. And Jane has seen that they go across. Well, this is managed, but they cross the canyon sometimes. I've never seen that. But
oh yes.
Can you tell us some stories, kind of that you remember
sure.
about that?
They do occasionally. I mean, once in 10 years, maybe get out. But they're homeless with the other goats, so they're not going to go too far. So that has not been a real problem. The coyotes have not been a real problem. They do have to close the street for a very little time. Below Thurston Junior High School, for example, that's where they move them from one section across Park Avenue to another section. And the streets closed down for 15 minutes or something. Not a big deal.
So after Berkeley or Northern California and Laguna, has this become popular in lots of cities? Or are we still, this is such a special program to Laguna Beach and we're a unique city.
No, other cities have taken it up as well. I can't name them, but yes, definitely other cities have taken it up.
It is, and I see people saying, where are the goats? And, I don't know if there's an app to find the goats and things like we have for the trolley, to find the trolley. Can you find the goats? Or
I think if
they're
somebody
so
just
popular.
calls the fire department and talks to the weed abatement person who coordinates the goats, Ray Lardy, he would be able to tell you exactly where they are. And yes, it's fun for them to bring their kids and have them feed the goats. And the goats love something for their diet, different.
I haven't done that. What do they like besides what they're eating naturally in Laguna Beach?
Oh, I use carrots and apples.
And do they have? Do the goats have children? Do the goats have,
yes.
reproduce?
Yes, and when the babies are born, they put them in a separate enclosure with their mothers.
Okay. thank you. I haven't seen
So they're not in the regular, or they may not even be in the same location. But yes, every year.
But no
there's
babies
more
in
dogs.
we don't have, are there any photos of the babies here or any photos?
No.
That you, yeah. No. There's the dog, and I've seen that dog, I think, the black and white dog. Yeah. The dog has a big job also to keep them going.
Well, fortunately, they've had the dogs for a long time too, and they're just part of the team.
Mm-hmm. They do a lot of work though. I guess their dog's bred to work all the time and constantly herd them and things like that. What about rattlesnakes? No rattlesnakes? Do you remember rattlesnakes?
I've never heard it raised as an issue. I don't know why, because there are rattlesnakes in some of the areas. I don't know why it's not raised, but it hasn't seemed to be a problem.
Well, they're really well loved, and they're still here today. And I know the programs you brought to Laguna, the park. There's a part of it's named after you. The Susie Q, was it the community center you were part of?
Yes.
Are all great, but the goats have been such a success. And and as we close, any other fun facts or stories that you remember residents doing?
No, I'm sorry.
I read about a wine and cheese party at someone's house watching the goats or something.
Well, I have threatened to do that, but
yeah.
You can't always be certain when the goats will be there. Sometimes they take a little longer in a section, sometimes it's quicker than you expect.
Yeah.
So it's hard to time that.
Yeah. And I want to thank you, but you also had one more. You had a kind of an ending question you wanted to ask about the success or about.
No, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that it does work. It removes the vegetation, all of it, and it provides defensible space for the firefighters. So you have to have the combination, firefighters and the fuel modification. And it doesn't work everywhere where there are sensitive plants that have not been destroyed. So we've had to go into some areas with hand crews, and people have to realize that that's pretty expensive. Mm-hmm. So we're not getting it for $10,000 a year anymore. It is a lot more expensive, but a heck of a lot better job and provides a lot more safety for our residents.
Yeah, and we haven't had too many huge fires, so it's working. It's working hopefully, but yeah.
Hopefully it's working. It worked up in the setup in North Laguna.
The morning one, that one
yes,
in the early morning,
yes.
Just a year or two ago, yeah.
Yes.
Well, do you have any other thoughts or anything?
No, I think we've covered it.
Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for taking the time this afternoon, and you're our first interview, so again, it's so people can see and hear about this today and
great.
for the future. Yeah. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you.